It's kind of funny. For those who don't know, I am, in fact, a history major. That is, I am going to university currently, and I am 1 year out from getting my Bachelor of Arts in History at my college. And being a aspiring historian isn't easy. The job market is extremely limited and extremely competitive, and it takes a real dedication and a real passion. And in general, I am very passionate about the field. You kind of have to be. I enjoy the conversation with the past, simply put. It's interesting. It's fun. You get to indirectly talk with people you'll never get to meet about lives you'll never get to live, and try to understand what it was like in a time before your own. However, this is not without fault, and for the amount of theory that goes behind it, there is a realm of history that remains simplistic in format and even worse in presumptions, and that is what's commonly referred to as public history. Oftentimes, it's just a misconception. Someone thinks something differently and will maybe vote for someone who's historically illiterate. However, sometimes this downright dangerous form of narrative does some actual cultural harm. Case in point, the Charleston church shooter. For those who don't know, some punk-ass white kid decided to attend a all-black church, and based on his racial views, segregation, decided that 9 people no longer needed to live. Despite the fact that they were already in an all-black church that was pretty well segregated from anyone with paler complexion. Regardless of how illogical it was, this was indeed a horrific event. So, on that note, fuck you, Charleston shooter. I hope you rot in jail. But you know what? He's small beans. He's gotten what he deserves. He's going to go to jail for shooting 9 people, and good riddance. He needs help for his homicidal behavior, and I can only hope that he receives that help. But you know who also needs help for their homicidal behavior and who's not going to get that help? The mass media. Yes, this has been said a million times before, and we really did see the entire gambit. We saw everything from gun control to video games to atheists all get blamed for this. But no one was the bigger winner in this round of what caused the kid to shoot someone than the race baiters. And in fact, they won such a large one that it fell into the hands of public history to deliver the death knell. Now everyone knows what this is. It's the flag of the Confederate States of America, who famously lost the American Civil War, which ran from 1861 all the way to 1865. It was the bloodiest conflict on American soil and remains a large sticking point today. It's no surprise that the flag is no exception to this, and depending on who you ask, to people who are very much supportive of the Northern victory, it's a sign of cowardice or even stupidity on the Southerners' part. To the Southerner, it's a sign of resistance against the North. To some people, it's a racist sign. And to some people, it's just a cool symbol that's associated popularly with the South today. And it's really that fourth thing that we really need to have a little discussion about here. See, in the mad rush to capitalize on this horrific event, the media buzzed around thinking of the connections that it could make. Well, Southern, racist. What popular organization in the South was racist? Oh, that's right, the Confederacy of the United States. Well, look, here's their symbol that's all around, and obviously it's a racist symbol, and therefore we need to make a huge stink about it just now. Unfortunately, when they did this, they were successful. Stores like Amazon were banning the items entirely. You thinking about getting that authentic model of the Dukes of Hazzard car? Well, you aren't going to see any more official merchandise with the Confederate flag on it, including the General Lee. So you're going to have to get it from independent sellers. Hell, there's been talk of all sorts of censorship. There's an article down below I'll link where someone has literally suggested that we ban the film Gone with the Wind because it is connected to that era. And you know what? I really don't want to argue the history of the South because as much as I actually am interested in Civil War history, Southern history, I find it rather interesting, especially given the reputation and the truth of the matter. I'm not interested in discussing that with anyone who wants to bring up anything against the Confederate flag as a result of this most recent outrage. They aren't going to get it, they aren't going to understand, and frankly, they aren't going to even pay mind. No, to counter this, I'm going to have to get stupid. In fact, I'm going to have to get so stupid that prepare for Godwin's Law. That's right, I'm bringing out the Nazis because the Nazis are frankly the only group who has a worser reputation than the Southerners within this sphere of populist history. In fact, to help the historically illiterate, I'm going to simplify my argument to a case study of cause and effect to best represent the point of why this entire outrage over the Confederate flag is bad. What if I told you that the modern-day journalists weren't the first to pioneer the tactic of jumping on tragic bandwagons to sell an ideological point? In fact, they weren't even the worst case. Because that's exactly what the Nazis did. They capitalized on the fact that people really didn't like the Kaiser. After the loss of World War I and the huge war reparations, the loss of life and the sudden hardships, they played off this great tragedy to morph the political state into something they could control so that in the end they could pursue their own ideological agendas, which, as we know, weren't very kosher, forgive the pun. This went so far as book burnings, censorship of material, and collusion of media to portray a single narrative, all until at least the German citizen, if not enthusiastic for their cause, was guardedly silent for fear of retaliation. There's a reason why the modern-day liberal populist collective, that is, the politicians and media, which present the so-called liberal perspective on politics these days, are compared to Nazis. Because this is exactly what they're doing. Instead of war, it is slavery. But the same thing still applies. There is mass censorship by a single narrative media against some symbol because it is icky. Voices from the past who didn't even get a voice to begin with on the record are now being disrespected and thrown into the category of racism simply because they existed at the same time that some laws existed. History, in a word, can be unpleasant. It can be confusing at times. It can be icky at times. It can be depressing at times. It can be everything that someone who doesn't want to put serious thought into it doesn't want it to be. No fool, whether it be a kid with a shotgun or a revisionist historian, can change this about history. And the more they do, the more they prove themselves a danger to our culture. This is exactly why something like Gamergate exists, why something like anti-social justice exists. Because we fight this fight against these kind of lunatics. And well, with that being said, and on a lighter note, this has been Robert Stoll, Stoll Review, wishing you all a nice day.